The fifth exercise is about timers. Because Node.js by default is a blocking language, meaning if you're doing something, then you cannot listen to another, you cannot listen to port, or you cannot do anything in parallel, so it's a single process thing. And therefore, if you want to do something after a specific amount of time or whatever, so we need to use some objects called the timer objects. And here are the three main ones. So we have three of them. We have the timeout, we have the interval, and we have the immediate. But the timeout and the interval is the one that we're going to use. And through this very simple example, I'm going to show how you can actually set the timers to go off at a specific time and do something at that specific time. So here is we have two timer objects, timer 1, timer 2, and then we have set before the timer is on. And then here's a command called set timeout, and so here is set after 100 milliseconds or 1 second. We go and execute whatever is inside these two brackets. And here is the after timer. The second example is about the interval, which is doing something several times. And then say, for example, here in this case, we're going to set an interval every 100 milliseconds, every 1000 milliseconds or 1 second. And then we're going to have a simple counter, so x1, and then we're going to add inside the interval 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 3. And if it's 3, we're actually going to clear the interval, meaning you would actually kill this timer. And here's another one. So with timer object 2, we can actually have another interval, and the other interval could actually be run in a different interval. And then if you run that, if you run this interval, you would have if you run this interval also, this interval or this code would be kind of a run in parallel to this code. And then we're going to have a set, and despite this one that we're going to kill it inside, we can actually kill the interval from outside as well. So here, for example, we say after 3 seconds or so, we set the timeout, and then we clear the interval timer object 2, which is this one. So as you can see, timer object 1, it would actually kill itself after several iterations, whereas the timer object 2 would actually be killed by another process. And if you run them together, at the same time, you would actually see that they would be run in parallel somehow. They would be, and the timers go off at their designated intervals. So let's run this code. Main timers. So here's the interesting thing before the timer. So as you can see, the code goes on. So it writes before the timer, then after the timer, and then inside the timeout, because this piece of code would be run after 1 second. And then here is every second it would actually do this 3 times, and then when it's 3, it would actually kill the timer. And here we're going to. And then here, if we mark out this part of the code, then if you run it, you'll actually see that only the timer 1 works, which is this one. If you mark out this part and unmark this part, you would see that the second timer works till 2. Then if we have both of them at the same time, as I showed at the beginning, they would actually be run in parallel.